Welcome. It is Mitch. I'm on YouTube. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. You know what I'm going to say. The goal is 1,000 subscribers by the end of the Packers season. I believe it is attainable. We will get there. It takes 2 seconds. Just click the subscribe button. Packers Cowboys Sunday Night Football standalone game in primetime in Jerry World. We'll have final thoughts later in the week, I guess, depending on when you watch this. The final thoughts video may already be out if it's Thursday afternoon or later when you come across this video. I want to zone in on one specific matchup. It's a coaching matchup in this game on Sunday night between the Cowboys and the Packers, and it is Matt LaFleur, the head coach of the Green Bay Packers, and Matt Eberflus, the defensive coordinator for the Dallas Cowboys. If you're even a average follower of the NFL or of the Packers, the name Matt Eberflus should ring a bell. He was the head coach for the Chicago Bears the past few seasons. I think he lasted 3 seasons before he was fired last offseason. He's now the DC in Dallas, and it has been a fairly miserable start. We'll get to that in a second. I wanted to really zone in to start on a matchup between Eberflus and LaFleur, and it's a matchup that LaFleur's offenses have dominated Eberflus's defenses. And I think when you look at Chicago and some of the problems they had in those 3 seasons for Eberflus when he was head coach, a lot of them originated on the offensive side of the ball. Chicago's defense was good to slightly above average in a lot of different categories under Eberflus. And he's a defensive-minded coach. He came over from Indianapolis, where he was the DC for a few seasons as well. But historically, when you look at this matchup, when LaFleur has been the head coach of the Green Bay Packers and Eberflus has been at a couple of different pit stops, Green Bay's offenses have dominated. And you can look at personnel, players on those teams, if that's what you want to justify it with. I look at it as Matt LaFleur just getting the better of Eberflus. There was one matchup when Eberflus was the Colts defensive coordinator in 2020, when LaFleur was already the head coach for Green Bay. The Packers scored 31 points in that game. Now, they lost that game 34-31. But again, we are looking at LaFleur's offenses against Eberflus's defenses and what has stood out historically. And there was that one matchup in 2020 when LaFleur was the head guy in Green Bay, Eberflus was the DC in Indianapolis, and the Packers put up 31 points. In the matchups where it was Bears-Packers, with LaFleur obviously in Green Bay and Eberflus as the head coach for Chicago, LaFleur's offenses put up totals of 27, 28, 38, 17, and 20. Every single game was a win for Green Bay. And if you remember, if you want to point back to, the Bears beat the Packers last year. Week 18, Eberflus was long gone. Eberflus was fired by that point, had been fired, and the Bears were running on an interim basis at head coach. And so Eberflus was not around for that Week 18 game last year. Now, of those numbers I told you, LaFleur-Eberflus matchups, remember I said the Packers have had point totals in those matchups of 27, 28, 38, 17, and 20. The one that should stand out in a positive light the most is the 38 points. Now let's look at that matchup and see what really stands out or stood out. That 38-point game, the highest one of the bunch, and there was a pick 6 by Quay Walker, so if you want to blend it down a little bit and say the offense really provided 31 points, that's fine. The team scored 38 points. That was Jordan Love's not only his first year as a starter, it was his first start as the guy. Now, we know Jordan Love had that start in 2021 in the COVID year against Kansas City on a short week, short notice because Rodgers had tested positive midweek, and that was Jordan Love's first NFL start. This game where Eberflus's defense yielded 38 points to the Packers, 31 to the offense, came in Jordan Love's first ever start as the guy. What do we have in Jordan Love? Here's his first start on the road, mind you, not at Lambeau, in Chicago, Week 1, just a few seasons ago. And Green Bay put up 38 points. Jordan Love had 245 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 0 interceptions. And if you go back and you look at that 2023 season, where LaFleur's team put up 38 points on Eberflus's, it was in Week 1, and that was the highest point total the Packers scored in any regular season game that year. Came all the way back in Week 1 of 2023 when LaFleur's team put up 38 points on Eberflus's. It has been a matchup between these two masterminds, if you will, and I'm in a weird spot with Eberflus as a sidebar here for just a quick second. The way he gets ripped in the media, it almost makes me a little sympathetic to him, and then I try to pollute my mind a little by reminding myself, this dude right now, he's a defensive coordinator in the NFL. He's been a head coach in the NFL. That's awesome, incredible, making millions of dollars doing so. How bad can it really be? But it can't be fun seeing the media reports every single day if you're Matt Eberflus when his time in Chicago came to an end and how it has started so far this year for the Dallas defense with Eberflus as the DC and sort of being the head of the snake for the operation there. But LaFleur's dominated this matchup. He just has. And you look at what Green Bay wasn't able to accomplish last week in Cleveland offensively and how things looked. And you can talk about the offensive line. You can talk about Josh Jacobs had 16 carries for 30 yards. Jordan Love's interception, yada, yada, yada. The best medicine that we have seen so far this year, if you are an offense looking to get a lick back, is to go up against Matt Eberflus's defense in Dallas. Now, maybe they settle in this weekend. It's completely plausible that could happen. It's a new DC, a new scheme. We know Dallas, historically, the last few years, regardless of who the defensive coordinator is, likes to run a lot of man coverage. Eberflus, stylistically, leans far more towards zone coverage schemes, zone coverage blueprints, so it's going to take an adjustment period time to settle in. But the best medicine that we have seen so far this year, if you are an offense looking to get back on the right track, and it's a sample size of 3 weeks, it is go up against this Dallas defense, because you can just ask Russell Wilson or Caleb Williams, the Chicago quarterback who used to have Eberflus as his head coach. Matt Eberflus's defense, Mitch, I'm on YouTube. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Always, always appreciative of all the support. Looking at the matchup, Packers offense, Cowboys defense, Matt LaFleur, Matt Eberflus. Matt Eberflus's defense, folks, has allowed 13 pass plays of 25 yards or more. And you might be like, well, how can we put that in perspective? It's a lot. It's a lot. In 3 weeks, your defense has allowed 13 pass plays of 25 yards or more. And I can bundle some perspective with this next note. Of those 13 pass plays that they have yielded that have gone 25 yards or more, 5 have gone for touchdowns, which is a league high. Not a division high, not an NFC high, a league high. The most in the National Football League. Touchdowns allowed via the passing game of 25 yards or more. Eberflus's defense has yielded 5 of those in 3 weeks. It's an astounding number for just having 3 games played. Dallas's defense is 31st in EPA per play, 28th in success rate. And I mentioned 2 names before, 2 quarterbacks. Russell Wilson and Caleb Williams. Russell Wilson's been around the block a few times. Russell Wilson the last few years has bounced around from team to team as he's late in his career, and you can see the wheels start to come off the bus a little bit. The gas tank slowly emptying to E with Russell Wilson in his career. A great career, though, right? Remember the glory days in Seattle, won a Super Bowl. Russell Wilson in week 2 this year didn't just have like a season best game against the Dallas defense. It was like a career performance. It was one of the best outings statistically that Russell Wilson has put together in his career, and that's not an embellishment whatsoever. Caleb Williams, only in his second year, probably his best performance of his career to date. Ask Bears fans, ask Bears coaches, ask his teammates who have been around last year and this year, and it's still a very young career, and you guys know Packer fans don't like hearing it. I'm high on Caleb Williams. I think he's going to be a pretty damn good starting quarterback once he figures it out. Part of me hopes I'm wrong about that, but a lot of me hopes I'm wrong about that. But Caleb Williams against Dallas a week ago, arguably, almost objectively, his best start of his short career so far, spanning 20 games. Eberflus likes to orchestrate a bend but don't break defense by design. And so far through these first 3 weeks, it's broke. And I mentioned the Cowboys would like to lean on man coverage defensively for many of their blueprints. They've done that the last handful of years. Eberflus leans more towards zone coverage. I think he felt the pressure after the first 2 weeks with the numbers they were giving up. And so if you go look, Dallas ran more man coverage looks against Chicago last week than it did the first 2 games on a week-by-week basis. The result was the same. Still just a putrid performance from Eberflus's defense, leading many to believe how big of a disaster is this? And I do want to dive into the numbers for the quarterbacks a little bit because I think it can shed some light on perhaps, I don't know what side of the aisle you guys and gals fall on when it comes to Jordan Love, because Jordan Love is becoming somewhat of like a polarizing name to discuss. I saw a clip from ESPN, and Drew Brees was on this week. And even after the performance against Cleveland, Drew Brees was asked which quarterback, I don't know if it was young quarterback, I think it was, like which quarterback do you feel really, really good about moving forward through this year? And the first name he said was Jordan Love. And Stephen A. Smith was like, did you say Jordan Love? And Drew Brees says, yeah, I love what Jordan Love brings to the table. And Stephen A. referenced the pick in Cleveland. But Love is becoming somewhat of a polarizing name. If you say anything in a negative light about him, those who are big, all in on Jordan Love support will come at you. But if you don't try to decipher and sort of digest some of the mistakes, especially that interception against the Browns, then there's a side that will say, oh, well, you'd say anything to defend Jordan Love. You'd say anything to defend him. And so it's kind of odd. It's just, it's a spot that Packer fans aren't too familiar with because, look, Bears, Lions, Vikings fans despised Aaron Rodgers, but there was a universal agreement they despised him because he more times than not beat up on their teams in the division. And Aaron Rodgers was one of the better quarterbacks, and I know he's still playing, but one of the better quarterbacks of that or this generation. A lot of people will say he can spin it with the best of them when you talk about the best quarterbacks to ever play the game. Now, when you talk resume, it's different because he's only got the one ring, different story for a different day. Love is becoming somewhat of a polarizing name, but I do want to talk about just how different the performances were for Russell Wilson and Caleb Williams against Dallas's defense this year in the last 2 weeks compared to how they've done against everyone else. Russell Wilson, again, just try to envision this because there's going to be a good amount of numbers coming your way, but they're simplistic, they're base numbers. It's not deep dive analytical stuff. Week 1, folks, Russell Wilson was 17 of 37 for 168 yards and 0 touchdowns. I'm going to say it one more time. Week 1 this year, Russell Wilson, 17 of 37, 168 yards passing, which is not a lot at all in today's game, 0 touchdowns. This past Sunday night, Week 3, Russell Wilson, 18 for 32, 160 yards passing, 0 touchdowns again, 2 interceptions. Very, very similar. 17 of 37, 18 of 32, 168 yards, 160 yards, 0 touchdowns, 0 touchdowns. He did have 2 interceptions this past Sunday. He didn't have an interception Week 1. Against Dallas in Week 2, sandwiched between. It's not like, hey, Weeks 1 and 2 went by, and then, boom, it clicked in Week 3. It was like really bad for Russell Wilson in Week 1, really bad in Week 3, but sandwiched in between in Week 2 is this dazzling performance where Russell Wilson went 30 for 41 for 450 yards in 3 touchdowns. And oh, by the way, Russell Wilson just got benched earlier this week for rookie Jackson Dart. 2 weeks removed from a 450-yard, 3-touchdown performance. What does that tell us? It shows how little is thought of what you do against this Cowboys defense. 2 weeks ago, Russell Wilson had 450 yards, 3 touchdowns, was moving and grooving, connecting with Malik Neighbors left and right on the deep ball, making plays left and right. 2 weeks later, he's benched. It shows how little people are respecting the Dallas defense. League-wide. Look at Caleb Williams. Week 1, Caleb Williams, 21 for 35, 210 yards, 1 touchdown. Again, just so you can hammer it home. Caleb Williams, Week 1, 21 of 35, 210 yards and a touchdown. Week 2, 19 of 30, 207 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 pick. So 21 of 35, 19 of 30, 210 yards, 207 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 touchdowns, and a pick in Week 2. Sunday against Dallas, Caleb Williams, 19 of 28, 298 yards and 4 touchdowns. I mean, it's not just a little different for Russell Wilson and what he did 2 weeks ago, and a little different for Caleb Williams last week compared to what they've done in their 2 other games this year. It is drastically different. Russell Wilson went from 168 yards and 160 yards to 450. 0 touchdowns week 1, 0 touchdowns week 3, 3 against Dallas. Caleb Williams, 1 touchdown week 1, 2 touchdowns week 2, 210 yards, 207 yards, 298 against Dallas, 4 touchdowns, no turnovers. And most importantly, because we are focusing, and I'm doing this intentionally because the secondary numbers are eye-opening, jaw-droppingly bad for Dallas's defense. And we want to focus on these big chunk plays, the pass defense. The pass rush has been horrendous too. And for the first time in his 20-game career so far to date, Caleb Williams was not sacked on Sunday by the Dallas defense. First time in his career, Caleb Williams, start to finish in a game, was not sacked once. The pass rush for Dallas has not been good. Dallas is 28th out of 32 in sacks per game at 1.3. The pass rush, fairly non-existent. And again, if you really want to just slice open a wound for a Cowboys fan and pour salt into it, you can surely bring up as a low-hanging fruit, hey, imagine if they had a guy like Micah Parsons. I think it's fair to say that. Pass rush, secondary has been terrible. But these quarterbacks, Russell Wilson, Caleb Williams, they played, I don't know who did Dallas play? Oh, the Eagles, Jalen Hurts week 1. I mean, these quarterbacks are having all day to throw. Set up shop in the pocket, just wait, diagnose, go through your progressions, boom. The secondary is not playing well. The pass rush isn't getting home at all. It is horrendous complementary football on defense. You get pressure on the quarterback, you're forcing quick, errant decisions. A secondary can pin their ears back, try to jump certain routes. You're not getting a pass rush. The secondary's having to hang on to their routes, hang on to their assignments longer and longer. And I'm not using it as an excuse because even when Dallas on rare occasions has gotten pressure on the quarterback, the secondary has just stunk across the board. It's not just when the quarterback's, having all day to throw. The Dallas defense as a whole has been miserable. And then if you want to go to another category, and this is actually something Green Bay's defense did so well last year and needs to try to figure it out this year because Green Bay has struggled in this department. But the Dallas defense in 3 games has 1 takeaway. It's just 1 takeaway in 3 games when Caleb Williams threw a pick the week before and they lost a fumble. When Russell Wilson had 2 interceptions this past Sunday but didn't make a single mistake. I think he had 1 against Dallas. And that was the only takeaway they've had all year. It's just 1 takeaway in 3 games for your defense typically isn't great. It's especially not going to cut it when there are so many other weak points on that side of the ball. If you're really grasping at straws and you want to try to find some sort of positive, something to hang your hat on, the Cowboys allowed 137 rushing yards per game last year. This year it's at 110 per pop through 3 games, which is that's a 27-yard difference. That's pretty drastic. But when you look at league ranks, last year, 137 rushing yards allowed per game, they were ranked 29th. This year it's 110. That's still only 17th in the NFL. And so you're seeing an improvement there. And you look at who they've gone up against. Like they had to go up against Saquon Barkley week 1, right? And Chicago doesn't really. DeAndre Swift's an okay running back, but in that Ben Johnson offense, you can see running backs really thrive. So the run defense, has been better for Dallas, but it's still only 17th in the NFL, which you can't gloat or puff your chest out about those numbers. And so you kind of have to ask, is the run defense an area that is truly improved, or is the number lower because teams are comfortable throwing it all around on this Dallas secondary? And there might be a compromise. There might be some middle ground where both of those things exist. Maybe the run defense is a little bit better. You add Kenny Clark to the equation, that's going to help your run defense, right? And that's what Dallas received in the Micah Parsons trade. 2 future first-round picks, players TBD, but they got Kenny Clark, who sure as hell is going to help your run defense, clogging up the interior. So from that aspect, maybe it got a little better, but part of this is I mean, Russell Wilson threw it 41 times because the Giants were like, we're having so much success in the passing game. We don't really need to run. Throwing is our best option here. And Russell Wilson went 30 for 41 for 450 yards and 3 touchdowns. And so a lot of teams are like, we can kind of do what we want passing the ball against Matt Eberflus's secondary. So let's just stick with that. Don't try to tinker with something that isn't broke. So you look historically, and this has been a matchup, and a lot of people will just view it through the prism of course, Green Bay, Chicago, the Packers have dominated that series under LaFleur. Last year, Week 18 was LaFleur's first loss, I believe, right? Against the Bears since taking over as head coach, and at that point, what was he, 6 seasons in? This is his 7th. And so the Packers have dominated the Bears, but there are areas that even when one team has dominated a team for 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years, whatever it may be, there's areas of success that the losing team is still going to have. And if you look at some of the games last year, and I hope I don't have to eat crow here, but I remember specific games where it was like, hey, the Bears defense is kind of holding their own, but you just remember gaffes like the Hail Mary against Washington is inexcusable. And who was it? Was it Tyreek Stevenson like pumping up the crowd facing away from the play, and then he was the one who sprinted over and batted it into the air? But the Bears defense wasn't like horrific last year, but against Green Bay historically under LaFleur, the Packers offense, LaFleur's offenses have gotten the better of Eberflus. Now last year, was a little bit different, or the last 2 matchups, I should say. I'm looking at the Bears' schedule last year. Yeah, like some of these losses, last year the Bears lost to the Texans 19-13. You give up 19 points, you feel good about your chances to win. The very next week, they lost to Indianapolis 21-16. You give up 21, you feel good about your chances. Later on in the year, they lost 18-15 to Washington on that Hail Mary play. They only gave up 18 points. They lost 19-3 to New England. They only gave up 19 points. 2019 to Green Bay on the blocked field goal as time expired. They lost 23-20 to Detroit. And that then was Eberflus is out the building. And then after Eberflus is out the building, after that clock management fiasco against the Lions, the Bears gave up 38, 30, 34 in 3 consecutive games. And so it's easy to just look at it from a broad perspective and say, hey, the Bears have been bad. They were bad under Eberflus. The defense wasn't too shabby, yet LaFleur's offenses put up great numbers in most of those matchups. Even the one dating back to 2020 when Eberflus was the DC at Indianapolis. Then you look at this year, and it's like, holy crap. Eberflus brought in as the defensive coordinator for Dallas, and it has been an absolute dumpster fire. 5 touchdown passes of 25 yards or more allowed in 3 weeks, most in the NFL. 13 pass plays of 25 yards or more allowed total. 31st in EPA per play, 28th in success rate. Russell Wilson looking like he dipped into the fountain of youth against the Cowboys in week 2. Caleb Williams looking like an MVP front runner for 1 week. That 1 week last Sunday against the Cowboys defense. If you had never watched Caleb Williams before and you watched him go for 298 yards, 4 touchdowns, no turnovers, not sacked once last week against Dallas. If you had never seen him play and you watched that game, you'd be like, that's one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. That's what Green Bay is licking its chops about, getting ready for this matchup. There have been no even small signs of improvement for Dallas's defense so far this year. It's been bad, arguably worse. It's just getting worse. And so if you're the Packers, there's that sour taste in your mouth after that loss to Cleveland. You are absolutely antsy to get out to Jerry World and face this defense. And I would go as far as to say if the Packers really struggle, like if the Packers don't score at least 20, then you're going to start wondering, well, it's going to matter like how that comes to be, but you're going to really have questions about the offensive line, real questions about the run game, about Jordan Love, because this Dallas defense, it's not just one area. The pass rush has been bad. The secondary's been atrocious. They give up big chunk plays. They only have 1 takeaway in 3 games. I mean, it's across the board that it's been bad for the Cowboys. So it should be, on paper and the eyeball test on tape, a prime opportunity for this Packers offense to give themselves a shot in the arm that they need, put up a bunch of points, and ride that wave into the bye week where you're starting to feel good again. Get that juju and those good vibes going in your direction. But yeah, LaFleur, Eberflus, it's been a third-round knockout in those matchups historically, a second-round knockout. LaFleur's gotten the better of Eberflus. We'll see if that stays true this Sunday. Let me know what you guys and gals think. It is Mitch M on YouTube. It takes 2 to 3 seconds to just click the subscribe button. Please do so. It costs you nothing. It helps me immensely. Always appreciative of all the support. We'll see you next time.